my friends, and welcome to the Growing Happy Babies Birthworkers interview series. In this podcast directory, I make sure that you have the easiest possible time deciding which wonderful birth supporter is right for inviting into your family's journey. All the potential members of your essential prenatal and postpartum village are assembled right here in the Growing Happy Babies directory. Doulas, midwives, prenatal and infant body workers, lactation consultants, and so much more. I'm Adina Kopinski, board-certified lactation consultant and fellow mom. Together, we transition more easily into motherhood. Let's grow some happy babies together. Hello, everyone. Welcome again. Today, I'm honored and excited to be speaking with Hanna Amouyal. She is a doula in the Jerusalem area, as well as a postpartum doula, a childbirth educator, and she also does prenatal and postnatal massage. So just an amazing toolbox of support for women who are going through their pregnancy and postpartum periods. And she's also, she just told me, a French speaker and offers doula and childbirth education services in French, which is, much harder to find in our area. So hi, Hanna, welcome.
Hi, Adina. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. One of the things I love most about doing these podcasts is how many just amazing people I meet. I think that the kind of person who gets called into pregnancy support, birth support, postpartum support is just, we're such, it's a big-hearted community looking to make
Absolutely.
women's lives
Yes.
and families' lives easier.
Absolutely. Definitely a career for givers and people who give wholeheartedly and people who give beyond what is expected of them. And it's an incredible community to be a part of. And have a lot of respect for anyone who works in the field of supporting women today.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in the field. What brought you to this world of childbirth support?
Wow. So this is actually a really nice story. I'll start off by saying I am a 32-year-old mother of 5 precious children. And if they listen to this podcast, they will be very excited if I say their names. So Sarah Chedva, Sasya, Roni, Aaron, and Sylvia are my gorgeous children and my inspiration. And how I got into this calling or profession, it's actually a very, very funny story. It was before I had ever had children of my own. And even as a young girl, I was very, very intrigued by birth. It definitely felt like this beautiful, mysterious, powerful transition that women go through. And I knew deep down that how birth had been portrayed in sort of movies, it didn't ring true with me. And I had this kind of deep-seated desire to witness a birth. And when I was younger, the whole birth vlogging phenomena that is around nowadays definitely did not exist. You couldn't just look up online videos of women giving birth. And I remember even at a very young age, about 18, asking one of my older cousins who was pregnant if I could come to the birth, and she very politely was like, "Yeah, sure, maybe," and obviously did not call me to attend the birth. But when I had moved to Israel, I had been studying various different things completely not related to birth. I ended up attending the birth of a very dear friend who was alone in Israel with her husband, but they didn't speak very good Hebrew. They were Olim Chadashim. And I had just said to her in passing, as our friendship developed, I'd said, if you want a female presence at your birth, your mom's not going to be there. You don't really have, friends, and she didn't have a social life here yet. I said, I can come if you want. And I kind of just put it out there. And lo and behold, the day she went into labor, I get a call from an exhausted husband who says, didn't you say to my wife that maybe you could come or something? And the adrenaline just started rushing. Now, bear in mind, I didn't know anything about birth. I had never given birth. I had no sort of birth education. Grabbed my rucksack. I put in all sorts of things that I thought might be useful. And I sped off to the birth. I met the husband at the door of the delivery room, and he looked exhausted. I gave him food from my bag, and I said, go and relax, go and lie down." And I walked in, and I found my very bewildered friend, who didn't really understand what was going on. She had been probably about 5 centimeters dilated for a good 6 or 7 hours. And she was a bit panicky, and she said, they keep mentioning cesarean, and I don't want a cesarean. And I think just the only way to put it is instinct completely took over. And I turned the lights off in her room, started giving her a massage, and then just words started flowing out my mouth. I was speaking to her about, imagine your baby, and imagine a light, and imagine an opening. And I was massaging her, and I was really connecting with her. I felt this sort of fusion between both of us. And we were alone for about 50 minutes. And at which point the doctors came in, turned on all the lights, and said, "Okay, we're going to check you. And if things haven't progressed, we're going to have to talk about, going into a C-section delivery." And they checked her, and she was fully dilated at that point, which was completely shocking. I don't even know if I knew what that meant at the time. And within an hour, she had given birth to her first beautiful baby girl. And, in those first moments after birth, when she was holding her baby and she was completely elated, she took my hands and she looked me in the eye and she said, "Hanna, you need to do this. This is what you need to do." And I said, "Do what?" I had no idea what a doula was. She goes, "Hanna, this is an actual job. It's a career. It's called a doula. You need to be doing this." And that's kind of what sparked the whole thing. And she also blessed me profusely that I should be blessed with children myself. And that very month I did become pregnant, and I had been married for about a year and a bit at that point. And I started my doula course 2 weeks after giving birth, and I took my firstborn, Sarah Hedva. She was with me the whole way through my doula course. And that's what really put me on this journey. And then I never looked back. I will also add that at my firstborn's birth, which I birthed her in the hospital, I really saw firsthand the importance of the person who is with you in the room when you're giving birth. And I say that because I didn't take a doula at that point. And the first half of my birth, I had an extremely caring and soft-spoken and intuitive midwife who made me feel very at ease, very comfortable. And unfortunately, when there was akhlafat mishmarot, when her shift was over, I had a very different style midwife who I can't say I connected with, and the experience sort of turned on its head. And I had already signed up to the course, but that's when I knew in my heart that the huge difference that it makes to have somebody with you, who believes in you and who speaks to you kindly and who gently reminds you of what you yourself want, and who supports you through the experience. I really felt it on my own body, the difference between having someone who is like that and then having somebody of a different style. And that really pushed me to want to do this and to do it really well.
Hanna, that's it. We could just end the podcast. Like, you just you had me in tears. You had me smiling. Like, you had me. I'm nodding my head in agreement.
Wow.
That's like a beautiful, beautiful story. A beautiful and true story. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't
for letting me revisit the story.
I don't even know what else to say to you. I want to hire you. I'm ready to get pregnant and hire Hanna as my doula.
Oh my God, please God.
I'm not really ready to, actually. Okay, wow. So that's amazing. That's wonderful. Yes, the person in your room is so important, changes the whole dynamic. And sometimes that person can be your husband and sometimes it can't. And it really depends on your relationship. And it's not a positive or a negative. It's
Absolutely.
a question of personality in so many ways.
Absolutely. I will say, as a birth educator, one of my favorite classes is the class where my client brings her husband if he's not been present the whole time.
Hmm.
Because preparing him and giving him the tools, it just changes the whole experience for her. Um, men want and fathers want to be a part of the birth. It's just when they don't have the tools and they're not sure what they're supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
things can go a little bit,
Hmm.
things go up in the air. But if you give them the tools,
Hmm.
more often than not, you will see them so readily involved in the birth.
Yeah. Yeah. What my
Yeah.
husband experiences after our births is sore fingers because I've squeezed his hand so tight for so many hours and he does it so nicely and uncomplainingly. He doesn't say a thing. And then afterwards he's like, oh, and he's like massaging all his finger joints.
Oh, amazing. I love that.
Yeah. So tell us more about the extra stuff you do. I think particularly it would be the massage or anything else that you bring to your childbirth education classes or your doula work that's like kind of over and above unique, your own perspective on the support
Mhm.
work that you do.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I learned, I did my doula course with an incredible teacher, Sarah Meshulamson, who is this incredible, feminine, holy woman. And she has a mantra, and that has carried me through. I've been a doula for 10 years now. And she always did this. She went, I have 10 fingers, and they are my best tools. And I really go by that. And I do work with homeopathy and herbs, and I do a lot of body work. We'll come to that. But I have all these other tools in my kit, reflexology. But the best thing that you have when you are at a birth is your two hands. And I really believe in the power of body work and intentional, loving touch as an incredibly healing and supportive tool. I don't like the idea that if I don't have something with me that day, or I'm called to a birth, but I wasn't home, I wasn't with my birthing bag with all my potions and creams in it, that the birth is going to be jeopardized. I truly believe that the birth shouldn't have to count on anything other than the hands of your doula and the loving energy that is transmitted through those hands. So I do believe in the power of like transformative touch, and that means body work before the birth, and hopefully also afterwards, and of course all throughout the labor, as an incredibly powerful tool. And that's something that I so appreciate, that was kind of drilled into our heads at the time, that we don't depend on anything else other than who we are in that moment. Um, yeah.
Yeah, you're reminding me of something that someone else said on this podcast. I was interviewing Valerie Milchado. She's up north, I think, in Zichron Yaakov, and she's a
Hmm.
I don't know if she's, I forget if she's, I'm pretty sure she's a doula and a childbirth educator and a lactation consultant without having like, notes in front of me. And she said something so beautiful about breastfeeding support. She said that she always tells the mothers that she's, doing prenatal breastfeeding education with, that the only things you need for breastfeeding, other than breasts, are your hands and your heart. And isn't that just what you're saying, right? Hands and heart. Like how much of the work we do just need hands and heart, right? Like
So,
touch
so much,
and
so
love.
much in the birth world and at the world at large, um, convinces women that they need to have certain things, or to acquire certain things, or to know certain things, in order to be ready, in order to know what to do. And there is so much information out there, and it can cause people to have a huge lack of confidence in who they are and their natural abilities.
Mhm.
And although information is incredible, and of course it is a tool in and of itself, it is limited. And what really gets a woman through birth, and what gets a woman to land softly into the role of motherhood, is when she believes in herself, and when she's in touch with herself, and she isn't dependent on some exterior factor to feel like she's good enough. And that's something I work with a lot with my clients. Apart from touch, which is kind of like a wordless communication, is just communicating and talking to them and helping them find themselves and the confidence in themselves.
Yeah, there's so much commercialization around birth and breastfeeding. that's it's extraneous, like you think you need to have like this kind of a pillow and this kind of a footstool and this kind of a
Absolutely.
machine to help you through your contractions. And like, yeah, they might be helpful, but like also women have been birthing and breastfeeding for all of human history, without things that you buy at a store. They're just out there.
Absolutely. I love this when I do birthing courses at people's houses, which is something I sometimes do. I love just showing them, like walking around the house and being like, this could be a stool, and you can lift your leg up like this. And we search around the house for what she already has. We're not looking to, give her a shopping list of things that she now has to go out and buy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as you were saying, women sometimes I do feel from them they have this notion that they need to become something or someone other than they are in order to be the woman that is prepared for birth. But I always say birth isn't just a subject that we learn about and try and grasp to the best of our ability in order to control it. I see birth as a teacher, and birth comes to us, and she meets us where we are at in life, and she comes to teach us something. Um, it's not always an easy lesson, and she meets us where we are, and I see this so often. She is either revealing a um, a power or a force that a woman wasn't aware that she had, or she comes to highlight a weakness that maybe the woman hasn't yet faced in her life or hasn't had the tools yet to grapple with, and birth will kind of bring that to the surface. And so I always say, leave space for birth to come and teach you something. It's not all about learning about birth.
Mm-hmm. And we don't just birth our child, we birth ourselves. Each time we birth, it's a new
Absolutely.
version of ourselves, and that has new
Absolutely.
layers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The whole thing is a learning experience. We are learning. We're not learning about. We're learning ourselves. Absolutely.
You wanted to tell me a story. Well, before we started recording, you said you were going to tell a story. So could you share it with us?
I did, yes. Well, it's the story of my most recent birth. I just moved back to Jerusalem, and I had planned to go back into the birthing world and attending births. I'd taken a little bit of a break because I have a 1-year-old. Um, and I actually got a call out of the blue one morning from someone who was not a client, but someone who I'm very close with. And she called me from the hospital room, actually, and she said, Hanna, can you come? I would really like it if you came. And it was her sixth birth. And she'd always given birth in the hospital, and things had always kind of gone very smoothly and very quickly. But at this birth, she had recently got an epidural, and everything had kind of slowed down, and things had stopped progressing. And so, she had the usual, if things don't progress, you might have to think about other options and things like that. So she called me, and I came. And her midwife happened to have been quite a busy day on the ward. So she was with a couple other birthing mums, and one birthing mum who was in the natural birthing room. And that meant that she wasn't present very much in the delivery suite, which for me as a doula is lovely because we can do so many things together without, bothering the doctors and the midwives. And things started off slowly, and then all of a sudden they very quickly picked up, and the contractions started getting stronger. And even though she had an epidural, she was able to move around on the bed. And at one point, she kind of got up onto her knees, and I was holding her, and we were hugging each other. And she looked at me, and I saw something open in her face. And she let out this sort of primal groan, and she started crying. And so I started crying, and I gave her this big hug, and I told her I loved her. Um, and we kind of stayed in this hug for a good minute or so. And then all of a sudden, I hear the words, Hannah, something's coming. So I kind of propped her back onto the bed, sort of popped my head out into the corridor where the midwives are, and I said, baby is coming, so the midwife needs to come. They said, okay, yes, we'll be there in a minute. So I went straight back to be with my client. And at that point, she said, Hannah, I can feel her head. The head is out. And lo and behold, we looked, and the baby just slid right out. The midwife was not present in the room. The baby had her umbilical cord 3 times around the neck. So I very quickly sort of just undid the umbilical cord. And just as I was doing that, the midwife rushed in. So I passed the baby to the midwife because I didn't want, I didn't want her to feel like I was taking over. I passed her the baby, and she gently placed the baby on the birthing woman. And I was very honored. It was an incredible, beautiful experience to be a part of, but it also highlighted to me just how important a doula can be. This isn't something that happens at every birth, and please God, most of the time the midwife is present. But sometimes there is, thank God the wards in Israel are very busy. And sometimes the midwife, she just can't be 2 people and in 2 places at once. And it just highlighted how important it is to have somebody who has a free pair of hands and eyes and who is present and who knows about birth and who is there to reassure you even when things, unfold very suddenly. And she looked at me and she just said, Hannah, what would I have done if you weren't here? And I said, okay, God, Hashem directs everything. So, in this scene, he had planned me. He definitely planned for me to be there, especially because, this isn't even a client that I had been working with or that I had planned to be at her birth. So it felt incredibly serendipitous, or should I say, hashgacha, mamash hashgacha pratit. And it just also highlighted how incredible a woman's body is, and birth isn't always something that a woman has to do. Sometimes birth happens to her. And I remember she looked the midwife in the eye and she said, I didn't do anything. I didn't even push. It just came out. Like she was sort of excusing herself for the baby having come out when she wasn't there. And I looked at her and I said, that's okay. That's absolutely fine. That is your body birthed this baby. And it was incredibly, incredibly empowering for this mother and also for myself as a doula.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Yes. So Hanna, I'm curious, what's your favorite piece of advice that you like to give a pregnant woman?
A pregnant woman or a postpartum woman? A pregnant woman?
You
Um,
you can tell us both.
both.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the best piece of advice that I could give a pregnant woman kind of comes in 2 parts. The first is you're already the woman. You are already the woman who needs to give birth. You don't need to become somebody else or reach a perfect state of readiness. And birth will meet you where you are. And birth doesn't ask you for more than that. And, you can't run into birth ready because birth is your teacher. And it will unveil something essential about you and in its own time. And I think that is part one. And part two is get to know your body. If it's not something, if it's not a relationship that is already sort of very strong before you give birth, take the time when you're pregnant to get to know your body. And that means very simple things like placing your hands on your body. It's not something we can do nowadays as part of our day. Just putting your hand on your chest, on your belly, breathing into yourself. Or I say, moments where you're anyway with your body, let's say the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Really take your time in the shower. Feel how nice the warm water feels spinning on your skin. When you're, soaping up, don't just sort of do it unthinkingly, quickly to get it over and done with. Take your time, feel your body, realize that this is the vessel that God has given you, and this is the vessel that's going to mercifully carry you through birth. And really just be in touch with that. Like this is your soul's partner in this world. And, try and develop a loving relationship with that vessel as much as you can before birth.
That touch is so important. In my work as a lactation consultant, I do body work for infants as well in the lactation consults, and it
Oh,
makes a
amazing.
dramatic difference from just doing lactation work. And yes, I've learned
Mhm.
things from craniosacral therapy, and I've learned things from myofascial release, and I've learned things from all sorts of different modalities, but I almost don't think any of it matters because what you communicate to a body. right? A baby's body, your own body, a mother's body. When you touch intentionally, lovingly, and you hold, right? Brief touch almost, it's not the same thing. It's this hold that's so
Mhm.
profound. Everything in the body just relaxes under you, right? Yourself or your baby or someone else's body. And that long loving hold is just like it's just an utter release of whatever's holding a person back from what they need to do.
Absolutely. You put that so beautifully. So, so beautifully. I just think there's nothing is going to regulate somebody's emotional system better than their own loving touch and coming back to themselves. Um, and I think you put that so, so beautifully.
Yeah.
Um,
This is
and
my
if you want to
favorite.
hear,
Yeah. This is my favorite part, asking for advice. And I love how different everyone's advice is. And yours is new.
yeah.
Just to get to know
Oh,
your
wow.
body, just to touch your body. I'm going to keep that
Yeah.
for
I
myself
mean,
as
we all hear about oxytocin being the driving force of labor. And the more that you can have those fill-ups of oxytocin filled moments throughout your pregnancy, the easier it will be for your body to access this well of oxytocin at birth itself. It's like a revving up. It's like an engine. Birth isn't some dislocated part of pregnancy that happens on its own. It's definitely a continuation of how you lived during your pregnancy. So just trying to get as much oxytocin doses as possible. And
yeah.
that is one of the best ways to do it is just touch, touch
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would say one of the most important things for postpartum women, um, the best piece of advice I have is just not to be afraid of the emotional intensity that accompanies postpartum. And it's not just hormonal and physical, it's also spiritual. And for some, it can feel like a complete unraveling. The smallest thing can make you weep. And this isn't even just for a first birth. Doesn't matter how many times you've given birth. The fragility of a woman after she's given birth is extreme. But I would say, have in mind that you're not falling apart, you're being rebuilt. And the image that I like to use is like a plant. Um, you have been unpotted, and we have removed you from your old soil, but we're now going to plant you into an even richer soil where you can root down even more and please God rise up even more. Um, and I love that image of rooting and rising, to help a woman understand that she's not breaking down and falling apart. She's going through a rebirth herself. Um, and I will say one of the keys to rerouting in order to re-rise is nourishment, and really, really taking the time when you're pregnant to read a little bit about what nourishes the body postpartum and have those foods ready in your fridge, freezer, pantry.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen it make such a big difference in women's lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
recently had our first nutritionist on the show.
Hmm.
She that interview hasn't been released yet. That'll come in a few weeks. Alana Hart, and she just talks about what does your body need when you're pregnant? What does your body need when you're postpartum, and how to meet those needs. Because
Hmm.
your nutrition is your emotional foundation, right?
Absolutely.
Because when we don't eat those
Completely.
foods that nourish us, we will fall apart. We will.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. It's like that image of a plant when you pot a plant into new soil. My
Yeah.
husband works in gardening, so I
Yeah.
know this very literally.
Yeah.
You really have to, for the first few weeks, nourish the plant with very specific products
Hmm.
so that it can reroot in its new environment well. And if you just take a beautiful, healthy plant and put it in new soil, but don't give it any support,
Yeah.
half the time that plant won't make it, or it will deteriorate. So it is the nourishment at that point, even if the rest of the time you aren't so, regular with your meals, or, you don't tend to eat the healthiest food. If there's going to be one point in your life where you nourish yourself wholesomely and fully and regularly, it's in that postpartum period. And there's some wonderful books out there. have a wonderful book called Nourishing the New Mother, or the First 40 Days Nourishing the New Mother, which is based on sort of Chinese medicine and how they, and the Chinese culture and how they nourish mothers. And I gained so much knowledge from that book. From after my own pregnancies, I went out basically to the shuk and bought everything that I could find in Israel that was on that list, and it made such a huge difference. And I always say, people are always in these incredible communities in Israel. People often have meal trains, and communities looking after them. And I say, don't shy away from giving out a meal list of things that you actually want to receive.
Yes.
Because getting food is lovely, but when you're getting schnitzel and rice every day, it's not super nourishing. And it's not that women don't want to put in the effort to cook nourishing meals. It's that it's not part of our cultural collective consciousness, like how to cook the most amazing balanced meals for a new mother. But if you give them a list of meals that you really enjoy or ingredients that you enjoy, women will be more than happy to have guidance into what to cook for you if they're already cooking for you.
And when
for your husband.
And when you're home, I love to help my clients get nourishment through liquid. And there's so many nourishing liquids. Liquid doesn't have to just hydrate you. It can have minerals, it can have vitamins, it can have iron. So teas and herbal teas are filled with minerals. The longer you steep them, the more minerals they get. Nettle tea is rich with iron. Broths, just drink vegetable broth, drink chicken soup broth. You're going to get vitamins and protein, and you're going to feel so nourished. Soups especially. And I just
soups are so easily stored. It's like a freezer food. You can be making these all throughout pregnancy and have a huge stock of them by the time you're giving birth.
Yes.
And it's such a worthwhile investment.
It feels good to eat soup postpartum in any season.
It does. It does. We need that warming aspect after going through, the marathon that is birth.
Yeah.
One of the last things I just wanted to say, because it came to me now, and I think it's so important, is when people talk about postpartum, it's not just the first 6 weeks. Women have this expectation that, at 6 weeks I go and see the gynecologist again, and so that means that my postpartum period is up and everything should be back to normal. And postpartum can be so much longer than 6 weeks, and that is completely normal. And to relate to everything that you want to do for yourself or that you're doing postpartum, you can drag that out for months, if not years. Postpartum doesn't really have an end date.
Yeah, right. It could be 6 weeks. It could be the 4th trimester. It could be the 1st year. It could be until your next pregnancy.
Exactly. Just to tell women, this is a non-fixed amount of time, and it will look different for every woman. But that care and that patience that you have to have with yourself during the postpartum period is a non-specified amount of time, and it's okay for it to be as long as it feels necessary for you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Hanna. Thank you for your wise words.
Thank you so much, Adina. It was meeting you.
Wonderful to meet you and talk to you. Every interview we've done up until now, housed at my website, growinghappybabies.com. But before you go, I've got one question. Are you the kind of person who learns better by listening or by doing? In my 2-part online prenatal breastfeeding class, The Pocket Prenatal, I blend the basics of breastfeeding with practical hands-on skills. Choose to watch the videos on your computer or phone, read through the transcripts, or pop in an earbud, take a walk, and listen to the audio-only podcast version. After you've dived into the what's and whys of breastfeeding, join part 2, our live hands-on class, where we roll up our sleeves and practice the how of breastfeeding. Experience hand expression, learn how to size yourself for better pumping, practice bottle feeding techniques that improve your baby's sucking skills, and use easy bodywork exercises to help your baby's comfort, sleep, and digestion. You're going to walk out of this class with an essential toolkit for navigating early motherhood. This is the class every baby needs their mother to take. Go to thepocketprenatal.com and use your listener code, growinghappybabies, for a special 10% discount. See you there.